My name is Jordan Hale, Major General Jordan Hale, if titles mean anything here. I hadn't set foot in my childhood home in over 7 years. Not since the day I left in full uniform with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and silence where a mother's hug should have been. The house still stood the same. White picket fence, the azaleas Mama never let die, and that rusted porch swing groaning like it always did. But something in the air told me I was walking straight into enemy territory. I hadn't been invited. Not formally. Not even a, "Hey, would be nice if you came." Just a short, forwarded email from my cousin Dina. Tessa's wedding. Next Saturday. Home church at 2 p.m. She says you can come if you want. If you want. After all these years. That's all my baby sister could manage. I wasn't expecting a hero's welcome. I'd served 4 tours, made it home with medals no one in that house ever asked about. I'd buried soldiers and saved more than I'll ever admit. But my family? They still saw the 19-year-old girl who left instead of playing bridesmaid at Tessa's Sweet 16. As I stepped out of my rental and adjusted the crisp creases of my classy uniform, a curtain twitched in the upstairs window. I saw her, Mama, still wearing curlers even at noon, watching like I was a threat. Well, maybe I was. The church was less than 3 blocks away, same place where Daddy's funeral was held. Same place Mama told the whole town I'd gotten too big for my britches, joining the army like I was running from something. Truth was, I wasn't running. I was surviving. The church bells tolled, and I slid into a pew in the back. Alone. I didn't want to sit up front. I wasn't here for applause or for grace. I was here to witness something. Maybe closure. Maybe confrontation. I wasn't sure. And then she walked in. Tessa Hale, bride-to-be, the golden child. She looked beautiful, of course. Lace sleeves, tulle train, flawless makeup and all. But what hit me harder than any IED I ever faced was the smug glance she gave my direction. Not surprise. Not warmth. Just a flicker of contempt and triumph. As if to say, "You showed up. Good. Now watch me win." And then I saw him, the groom. No, that couldn't be. My stomach clenched. My heart didn't break. It detonated. Jason Whitmore. Captain Jason Whitmore. He was in my unit in Kabul. My second in command. My confidant. My almost everything. Until he vanished without a word. Now he was standing at the altar, wearing a smug tux and holding my sister's hand. I didn't flinch. Training kicked in. I sat still, emotionless, but my hands gripped the wood of the pew so hard my knuckles whitened. There it was. The betrayal I never saw coming. It wasn't just that they were together. It was how. Because Jason, he knew everything. He knew what I wrote in the letters I never sent to my family. He knew about the friendly fire incident that still haunted my sleep. He knew I blamed myself for a young recruit's death. He knew that my one wish was to someday return home and make things right. He took that and handed it to Tessa like a wedding gift. The ceremony passed in a blur. I didn't stand when asked. I didn't sing the hymns. And I sure as hell didn't smile when they said, "I do." But I waited. Outside, while they gathered for photos on the church lawn, I leaned against the shade of an oak tree. My cap tucked under one arm, my boots still shined. I watched them pose, fake laugh, Tessa tilting her head just enough to show off her ring. His ring. Then she saw me. Her smile froze. And I knew in that instant she hadn't expected me to come in uniform. Oh no, sweetheart. This wasn't just a guest appearance. I came as a reminder. I came as a reckoning. Later that evening at the reception, I didn't mingle. I stood near the bar, listening to whispers swirl like wine in cheap glasses. She really came dressed like that. Isn't she the one who never came to her father's funeral? I heard she was in therapy overseas. You know what that means? Let them talk. Every battlefield has its spectators. But what they didn't know was that this battlefield, it belonged to me. Then came the moment that truly lit the fuse. They dimmed the lights. Slideshow time. Photos of Tessa and Jason. Childhood memories, college, vacations, military functions. Military functions? There, frozen on the screen, was a photo of Jason at Bagram Airfield, standing at the edge of a memorial wall. And beside him, me. Only my face had been blurred, erased, like I didn't matter, like I never existed. Tessa turned and smiled directly at me from her sweetheart table. Oops, her eyes said. She'd used my life, my story, my service to decorate her wedding, and then scrubbed me out of it. I exhaled slowly. This wasn't just petty. It was calculated. And if there's one thing I learned in the military, it's that you never strike back in anger. You strike back with precision. So I left, quietly, without dessert, without fanfare, but not before stopping by the guest book. I opened it, flipped to the first blank page, and wrote, "Congratulations. I hope he's worth everything you buried. Major Jordan Hale." I left the reception in silence, but my thoughts screamed like mortar rounds. Each step back to the car was heavier than the last, not because of what I saw, but because of what it meant. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a coordinated hit on my legacy. Tessa and Jason didn't fall in love by accident. They curated a romance out of my ashes. And the part that made my throat tighten, Jason knew I still loved him. The drive back to my motel was lit by flickering orange streetlights and the occasional firework from someone prematurely celebrating the upcoming holiday. I didn't bother unpacking. I sat on the edge of the bed, in full uniform, medals still clinking faintly on my chest. I opened my laptop, logged into the encrypted backup server I hadn't touched since my final deployment. I was never the type to keep photos of home. But Jason was all over my private archive. Briefing rooms, field tents, rescue missions, notes he scribbled in black ink during long flights. And Tessa had never once visited me on base. Yet there she was in our photos now, edited in like a placeholder for my erasure. I clicked on a video file. July 3rd, 2018. We'd just completed a 27-hour mission extraction. Jason had slumped beside me, filthy and grinning. "I don't think anyone, but you could have pulled that off, Hale," he said. "They'll write books about this someday." I laughed, exhausted. "They won't. They never write about women like me." Jason turned to the camera. "I will. That liar." 3 days later, Mama finally called. "No, hello. You just gonna leave without saying a word?" I stared at my phone like it had grown horns. "You mean like how y'all forgot to say I was ever born?" Mama scoffed. "Don't you get all dramatic on me. This was Tessa's day. You always make everything about you." I laughed coldly. I wore a uniform to honor the only part of me y'all never touched. You wore that uniform to make us feel guilty. "No, Mama, that guilt, you already owned it. I just walked in and made you see it." She hung up, and I realized they didn't just tolerate my absence over the years. They built an entire narrative around it. In that narrative, Jordan Hale was unstable, difficult, too much army in her blood. They used my silence like duct tape, covering the cracks in their story, so no one ever asked why the eldest daughter vanished without a trace. I spent the next 2 days piecing together something I hadn't dared touch in years. Operation Dovetail, my final mission, the one that earned me my promotion, the one Jason was debriefed from just before things went dark. Tessa had alluded once in a holiday card to Jason helping with a documentary about veterans returning home. I never gave it much thought until I found the trailer online. The video started with a fade-in of an arid desert. A familiar voice narrated over B-roll. Some warriors carry their battles with them. Others turn their wounds into wisdom. Jason, using my words from my mission journal, cut to footage of soldiers running through debris. And then Tessa on screen, wearing a camo jacket like it was Fashion Week, speaking about her experience supporting veterans, saying her husband's courage inspired her to start a community initiative. No mention of me. No credit to the woman who led the operation they were now commercializing. They took my blood-stained truth and gift-wrapped it for profit. I reached out to one of my old military contacts, Gomez, cyber intelligence, loyal and discreet. I need eyes on a project called Homefront Valor. Check ownership and funding. Quietly. He didn't ask questions. He never did. By nightfall, I had the full report. The documentary was greenlit by a local veterans grant, a grant I had written years ago while stationed in Kandahar. Jason submitted it under his name, using my field notes. And Tessa, she registered herself as executive producer 2 weeks after their engagement, 6 months before Jason ever told me he was seeing someone. They planned this, right down to the betrayal. That night, I pulled out the old footlocker I kept in my motel closet. Inside, 3 black journals, a USB stick, and my late father's war medals buried beneath dust and memory. He was a quiet man, a Navy corpsman, and the only person in my family who understood what it meant to serve. He'd once told me, truth doesn't have to scream to be heard. Just let it walk into the room. It was time. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to let the truth walk in. The plan took 1 week. I contacted a former comrade, Andrea Lim, now a local news anchor who covered military stories. She owed me a favor. I gave her everything: footage, emails, mission briefings, my journals, and a recorded testimony under oath. She didn't hesitate. "This will be controversial," she said. "You sure you're ready for the fallout?" I buried people for this country. I told her I can handle a wedding scandal. The broadcast aired Sunday night, titled Decorated, Deleted, The Silencing of Major General Hale. It was devastating, poised, undeniable. It told the story of a woman erased from her own heroism. It ended with a clip from the blurred wedding slideshow, then slowly unblurred my face in the photo. I watched it alone, in silence. Then my phone exploded. Mama called first. "You humiliated us." "No, Mama, you did that when you raised a daughter you never wanted to understand." Tessa emailed next. No subject. Just, "Why would you do this to me? I'm your sister." I didn't reply. I simply forwarded her the journal entry Jason quoted in his fake documentary, my original scan, time-stamped, and below it I wrote, "You don't get to profit off of people you pretend to protect." Jason tried calling 5 times, then texted, "Let's talk, please. I'm sorry." I texted back, "Honor doesn't beg for forgiveness. It earns it." Then I blocked him. 3 days later, their documentary was pulled, the grant revoked, Tessa's Veteran Initiative page went down, and the local paper ran a piece titled Stolen Valor by Marriage, The Ethics of Reputation Laundering. But I wasn't interested in headlines. I wasn't even interested in revenge. I just wanted truth to stand up in its boots and walk through the door. 2 weeks after the story aired, I was invited to speak at the same church where Tessa got married. Veterans Sunday, packed house. I wore the same uniform, same medals, same silence, until I reached the podium. Some of you know me as the one who left. Others know me now as the one who was forgotten. But I'm not here for pity. I'm here to remind you that honor isn't inherited. It's built, one choice at a time. And silence is no longer my choice. Standing ovation. Even Mama wept. The first few days after the broadcast were quiet, unnaturally so. After years of being overlooked, erased, and dismissed, I should have felt relief now that the truth had its moment in the sun. But peace has a strange texture when you're not used to it, like sleeping on silk after decades of sand and steel. It's soft, sure, but you never stop bracing for the storm. I started walking again, not for fitness, for grounding. Every morning at 6 a.m., I laced up my boots, real ones, not the ceremonial gloss, and circled the perimeter of town. There was something sacred about watching the world wake up while everyone else was still sleeping. Something familiar. Then, one morning, I came back from my walk and found him, sitting on the motel steps. Jason. He didn't wear the uniform. Not this time. Just jeans and a clean, white shirt, hands resting on his knees like he didn't know whether to salute me or cry. I stopped in the parking lot. Didn't speak. I thought, maybe you'd hear me out, he said, standing. The nerve. After everything. Are you here to reclaim the footage? I asked. Or to pretend your betrayal had context? He winced. I deserve that. You deserve worse. Jason sighed. Tessa came to me with the idea. She said you were unreachable. Said you didn't want to be part of anything anymore. I thought maybe if I brought the story forward, it'd help you. You thought stealing my trauma and handing it to someone else would help me? She wanted to honor you. I scoffed. You mean she wanted to replace me? He didn't argue. Which was worse? I didn't invite him into the room. I let him stand under the weight of everything he broke. You loved me once, he whispered. That woman died under an Afghan sky with a radio in one hand and blood on the other. You could have called. You could have waited. Jason lowered his gaze. I was scared. I tilted my head. I wasn't. That was the difference between us. He tried to hand me something, an envelope. I didn't take it. It's a letter, he said, from your dad. I found it when I moved into their house. I froze. What do you mean, their house? Tessa, she never told you? Your dad left it to you in his will. But your mom, she had it rewritten before probate. She said you wouldn't come back, wouldn't care. I took the envelope slowly. It was dated 6 months before my last deployment. The handwriting was unmistakable, Dad's. Jordan, if you're reading this, I probably didn't say it enough in life. You became everything I hoped you'd be, and even more of what I couldn't. This house, it's yours. Always has been. I know your mama won't understand that. But one day, maybe she will. Keep leading. And never let them dim your shine. Love. Daddy. My throat tightened. That house, the one they laughed in without me. The one they locked me out of. It was mine. They took that, too. Jason left without another word. Good. But the damage lingered like smoke in a closed room. That night, I drove to the old neighborhood, sat across the street from the house. The porch light was still on. The swing still creaked in the breeze. I didn't knock. Not yet. But for the first time, I realized something. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd been building a life with my stolen bricks. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. From Tessa, handwritten, neat, structured, a performance even in ink. Dear Jordan, I know you think I ruined everything, but from my view, you left us behind long ago. I didn't ask Jason to love me. He just did. And I didn't mean to erase you. I just finally stepped into the spotlight you left empty. I don't want to fight anymore. I want peace. I'm pregnant. I read that last line twice and felt nothing, no anger, no jealousy, just the final click of a door closing. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Gomez again. Remember that will rewrite you mentioned? Think you can dig up the original? Already working on it, he replied. Of course he was. 3 days later, he sent it to me. Undeniable. My father's original will, signed, witnessed, and notarized. The house was mine. I consulted a lawyer. Quietly. She smiled when she saw the paperwork. Oh, this isn't even a battle, she said. This is a demolition. I didn't want the house. Not to live in, anyway, but I wanted them to see what truth looks like when it comes wearing boots and orders. I filed for legal reclamation. Within 14 days, they'd be served. The day the papers hit their mailbox, I got a text from Mama. You wouldn't. I didn't respond. Then another. You're destroying us. This time, I replied. You did that the moment you rewrote his truth. I didn't gloat, didn't go to the courthouse, didn't even step foot on the property again. I just waited for the mail to bring what was rightfully mine, the deed. It arrived wrapped in a standard brown envelope. Inside, clipped to the title, a note from my attorney. Congratulations, Major General Hale. The home is legally yours. What would you like to do with it? I stared at the question for a long time, and then I made a choice. I donated the house to a local nonprofit for female veterans escaping domestic abuse. They turned it into a transitional shelter, renovated the rooms, painted the porch, kept the swing. I asked them to name it the Hale Home, for my father, not for me, because he'd built a place for me when no one else would. Now it could do the same for others. I sent no notice to Tessa, no explanation, but the dedication ceremony made the news. My name in gold on a brass plate near the door. If she saw it, good. If she didn't, even better. One day, Andrea Lim reached out again. People want more. Your story's resonating. Think you'd ever write a book? I laughed. Not about them, I said, but maybe about what happens when women stop apologizing for surviving. The newspaper headline read, Veterans Family Home becomes sanctuary for survivors. And right beneath it, Major General Jordan Hale gives back in father's name. It made the rounds faster than I expected. By noon, my inbox was overflowing. Former comrades, old teachers, even strangers. But the message that stopped me cold came from a name I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Reverend Thomas Brand, the man who delivered my father's eulogy. His email was simple. It's time they hear the truth from more than just you. 2 days later, I got a knock at my motel door. Not Jason. Not Tessa. Mama. For a second, I didn't move. I wasn't sure if I should even open it. But the silence between us had rotted long enough. I cracked the door, just wide enough to see her. No makeup, puffy eyes, a face that looked like it finally saw its own reflection. She didn't ask to come in. She just stood there, clutching something. It was a photo album. Old, dusty, the one I'd left behind when I enlisted. I found this, she said. Thought it was gone. I took it without a word. Inside were pictures I hadn't seen since I was 18. Me holding a paper medal daddy made me. Me saluting in front of the mirror with my toy helmet. Me hugging Mama before boot camp. And in the very back, a letter, unopened, to my girls, from Dad. Mama sat on the edge of the bed, quietly. Her voice cracked before she said anything. I didn't know he left 2 letters. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a message meant for both of us. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. Jordan, Tessa, you two were the heart of this family. And I know y'all grew different, but that's what makes you strong. Jordan, if Mama ever makes it hard to come home, it's not because she don't love you. It's because she don't understand how to love someone who chose a harder road than she ever had to walk. Be patient with her. And Mama, please stop expecting her to act like someone else's daughter. She's yours. And she made us proud. I didn't realize I was crying until the tear hit the page. Mama covered her face, then whispered, I thought I was protecting you by pushing you away. No, I said, you were protecting your image. I didn't fit it. I didn't know how to love a soldier. I nodded, and I didn't know how to forgive a mother who tried to rewrite me. She reached into her purse and handed me something else. A velvet box. Inside were Daddy's original dog tags. I kept them, she said. I didn't want Tessa to have them. I told myself I was waiting for you to come back, but I never called. I closed the box gently, not as an end, as a beginning. The next week, something unexpected happened. The town's Veteran Affairs office invited me to give a speech. Not just any speech. They wanted to name a local scholarship after me. Are you sure? I asked the coordinator. You know the full story now. That's exactly why we want it, she said. Our girls need more than fairy tales. They need to know that honor doesn't come wrapped in approval. Sometimes it comes after war on every front. The event was held at the Civic Center. Full house. Mama sat in the front row, next to Reverend Brand, and beside her, to my shock, Tessa, heavily pregnant, eyes down, but present. I took the stage, wore my uniform, not for them, for the young girl in the audience who might be wearing combat boots someday. For years, I thought silence kept the peace. I thought not speaking my truth meant protecting the people I loved. But silence isn't peace. It's a prison. And sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do is come home and tell the truth. There were tears, applause, but the loudest thing in the room was acceptance. After the ceremony, Tessa approached. No cameras, no smugness, just a woman humbled by consequence. I'm sorry, she said, not just for Jason, for everything. I know. I named her Jordan, she said, resting her hand on her belly. Not to take anything from you, but to give something back. I didn't respond right away. I don't need a namesake. I finally said, I need honesty. Tessa nodded. I'm trying. And for the first time in years, I believed her. Later that night, I went back to the Hale home, the new transitional center. Paint was fresh, beds made, bookshelves stocked. One of the women staying there, Angela, was sitting on the porch swing. You're the one who built this, right? She asked. I smiled. No, but I inherited the courage that did. She grinned. Well, thank him for me. I will, I said, every time I look in the mirror. The night after the scholarship ceremony, I sat on the edge of my motel bed, staring at the velvet box with Daddy's dog tags. I had spoken to a full room, worn my uniform with pride, watched a roomful of civilians stand not just for a title, but for a story, my story. And still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something hadn't settled. Something was still waiting. Maybe it was the knowledge that healing doesn't erase damage. It just teaches you how to live beside the cracks. The next morning, I visited the Hale home early, before the counselors and staff arrived. I brought coffee, made the way Daddy liked it. Black as night. No sugar. No apologies. Angela, the woman I met on the porch swing, was inside folding laundry. She nodded to me and said something I wasn't expecting. Your story gave me permission to stop apologizing. That line settled into my chest like a medal I hadn't earned but needed to carry anyway. At noon, a community leader named Mr. Lowell stopped by the house. He was in his 80s, wore suspenders, and spoke with the kind of slow, deliberate voice that made every syllable sound like scripture. I served with your father, He said, "In Okinawa." That startled me. I didn't know anyone from town was in the Pacific. "Oh, we weren't from here back then." "Your father," he came back quiet, "just like you." He pulled out an old black and white photo from his wallet. Two young men, matching grins, dog tags swinging. "He saved my life. Twice." My eyes blurred. He continued. "When he moved to this town, he told me one day his daughter would grow up to do more than both of us combined. Said he'd raise her to lead. So even if the world forgot him, it'd never forget her." That night, I went back to the motel and dug through my footlocker again. Tucked behind the journals and training certificates was a document I had never opened, an invitation to a leadership symposium I'd declined 2 years ago. It was for decorated women veterans looking to transition into politics. I had dismissed it. Thought politics? No. I've seen enough manipulation to last a lifetime. But now, the battlefield felt different. Now, I wasn't running from a uniform. I was wearing it for others. I made a call. The line rang once before a woman answered. Senator Carla Timmons' office. "This is Major General Jordan Hale. I believe she once asked to meet me." The woman paused, then said, "Hold, please." 30 seconds later, a voice I recognized from national interviews came on the line. "General Hale," she said warmly, "we've been waiting." 2 weeks later, I flew to D.C. Not in a dress, not in disguise, in uniform. The senator met me in her office, overlooking the Capitol. "You've caused quite a stir," she smiled. "Good. Stirring's overdue." She laughed. "I watched your speech. The one about silence. It reminded me of myself 20 years ago. I didn't bother with flattery. I'm not interested in being a face on a brochure." "Good," she said. "We need warriors, not mannequins." By the end of the meeting, I'd agreed to serve on a National Veterans Advisory Council, focused on policies protecting servicewomen from abuse, homelessness, and post-discharge injustice. She asked me to write a bill. My own. "I'm not a politician," I said. She looked me straight in the eye. "No, but you're a general, and generals write battle plans." Back home, I visited Daddy's grave. The stone was clean, flag still standing. I knelt and placed the dog tags on the marble. "I'm not fighting for your name anymore," I whispered. "I'm fighting in it." And then I told him everything. About Mama's tears. About Tessa's child. About how this war didn't leave shrapnel. It left silence. And how I was done being quiet. A few days later, I got a voicemail. From Tessa. "Hey, I know you're busy. I just wanted to say, I saw the interview you did with the senator. And I thought maybe, if it's okay, I could bring little Jordan to meet you. She deserves to know where her name came from." I didn't call her back right away, but I listened to that message more than once. When I finally agreed, we met at the park near our old school. Tessa walked slowly, holding the hand of a tiny, curly-haired girl with hazel eyes. "Hi," Tessa said. The little girl looked up at me. "Are you the soldier lady?" I knelt down. "I am." She smiled. "You're taller than Mommy said." I laughed. She always did underestimate me. We sat on a bench while little Jordan played. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," Tessa said. I shook my head. "It's not about deserving. It's about deciding when to stop carrying other people's shame." "I didn't just take Jason from you," she added softly. "I took Dad's house. Your place. I let Mama push you away because it was easier to be her favorite than be fair." "Jason wasn't mine to keep," I said, "but our father's legacy was." She nodded, then pulled something from her purse. A ring. Dad's signet ring. "I want you to have this," she said. I didn't reach for it. Instead, I looked at her. "I don't need trinkets. I need you to raise that girl knowing truth matters more than comfort." "I will," She said, "I promise." And for once, I believed her. In the months that followed, I moved into a new apartment across town. Small, quiet, mine. I didn't go to family dinners, but I didn't avoid them either. Tessa and I rebuilt something. Not friendship, not sisterhood. Something honest. Which was better? Mama sent letters. Short ones. Apologies stitched into memories. I didn't answer them all, but I saved every one. Then, one morning, a letter arrived on official paper. The Department of Defense. They were offering me a position. Assistant Secretary for Women Veterans Affairs. Full clearance. Direct line to the top. My first instinct? Say no. Too political. Too performative. But then I thought of Angela, of the girls in the audience, of my father, and of a little girl named Jordan looking up at me like I hung the moon. I said yes. The day I took the oath, I didn't wear my medals. I wore a pin Daddy gave me when I graduated boot camp. A small eagle. He told me it wasn't just for flying. It's for seeing from above and protecting what matters on the ground. It was raining the day I returned to the academy, not the military one where I earned my bars, but the one where I first dreamed of leaving. The place where a teenage girl sat in the back row of history class doodling flags and battle plans in her notebook because it felt easier than trying to belong. Now I was back, invited to give the keynote for the graduating class at Gadsden High School. The same auditorium where I'd once stood silent, too ashamed of my uniformed ambition to raise my hand. The same auditorium where a younger Tessa had been crowned homecoming queen. The same place Mama sat in the third row every year and clapped politely for everyone but me. This time, they all stood when I walked in. Mama, Tessa, little Jordan, on her lap, waving with both hands. The principal introduced me like I was a myth. Decorated, distinguished, first of her class, first of her kind. But when I took the stage, I didn't read from a speech. I spoke from a place I had kept guarded for decades. When I was your age, people told me I was too tough, too loud, too serious, too much of something no one could define, but everyone felt the need to shrink. So I left. I joined the military because I thought the only place I'd ever be respected was a battlefield. And for a while, I was right. But what they don't tell you about war, any war, is that it doesn't end when you get home. Sometimes it just changes clothes. The hardest war I ever fought wasn't against a foreign enemy. It was here, in this town, in my own family, and I didn't win by yelling louder. I won by standing still, by telling the truth, by refusing to disappear. I tell you this not to glorify pain, but to validate yours. If someone's ever made you feel like your story doesn't matter, tell it louder. If you've ever felt invisible, make them see you. And if you've ever been erased, write your name back in ink they can't scrub off. You don't have to earn your worth. You were born with it. And sometimes the most powerful kind of revenge is not becoming like the people who tried to break you. When I finished, the auditorium didn't erupt. They didn't stand and cheer. They sat still, stunned. And then, like thunder following lightning, the applause rolled in. Not because I performed, but because I let them see something real. Afterward, as students lined up to shake my hand, one girl stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "I never thought I'd see someone like me on this stage," she said. I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then your job now," I told her, "is to make sure someone like you stands here next." Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky split with that golden hue that only comes after a storm. Tessa came up behind me, holding her daughter. "She wants a picture with you," she said. I kneeled down and wrapped my arm around little Jordan. I whispered, Your name means courage. She looked up at me. Mama told me. She said you earned it. I smiled. No, sweetheart. I live it. That night, Mama cooked dinner. Her famous cornbread, fried okra, collards, just like Daddy loved them. No tension, no tiptoeing, just a table full of survivors who finally stopped pretending. At one point, Mama raised her glass. To Jordan, she said, voice trembling, the daughter I finally learned how to love. I didn't cry, not this time, but I looked her straight in the eye and said, I never stopped loving you. I just stopped waiting for permission to be myself. When I left, I walked to the porch, same swing, same creak, and sat there with the stars overhead. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't bracing for battle. I was breathing, not in retreat, not in readiness, but in peace. Because sometimes revenge isn't a scorched earth. Sometimes it's a rebuilt one with your name etched in the foundation. And sometimes the most honorable thing a soldier can do is come home